So moving on to our second topic of the podcast. This is a big one. Trump was, air quotes, impeached. Only in the House, though. So we're going to talk about this briefly. Well, not briefly. We probably have a lot to say on this. But so basically, the impeachment went through in the House. It was live broadcasted on TV. And he was charged with 2 articles. Article number 1 was Article 1, abuse of power. And that passed. No surprise there. The Democrats voted 229 for. There were 0 Republicans that voted for. There was 1 independent that voted for. No. There were 2 Democrats that voted for no. 195 Republicans that voted no, and 0 independents that voted no. And there was one person present. So the second one was Article 2, obstruction of Congress, and that was similar. 228 for the Dems, 0 for the Republicans, obviously, and 1 for the independents. Then on the no, obviously there was 3 Dems that said no, 195 reps that said no, and 0 independents, and then there was 1 present. So 1 person didn't vote, but so yeah, this was some pretty big news. But when the impeachment happened, it was confused. People thought that he actually was removed from office.
Yeah, several people messaged me like, "Oh my gosh, he's actually impeached." I was like, "No, he's not."
No. So if you're unfamiliar with how the American impeachment system works, basically, the House votes on articles of impeachment. If less than a majority support impeachment, Trump remains in office. A simple majority, 51%, support impeachment, Trump is impeached, and a trial begins in the Senate. After the trial, the Senate votes on whether to convict the president. Less than 2/3 of the Senate vote to convict, Trump remains in office. 2/3, 67% of the Senate votes to convict, Trump is removed from office, and vice president takes over. Okay? They only completed half of that, and now it needs to go into the Senate. But Nancy Pelosi, Senate majority, not Senate, no, that's Mitch McConnell, sorry. Nancy Pelosi, the House Speaker, is saying that she's not going to give the articles of impeachment to the Senate.
She's causing problems because she's Nancy Pelosi.
Unless they take it seriously, and in her words, seriously is they need to have a trial and they need to actually bring witnesses up. And the Republicans have no interest in doing that. We basically want to get the vote over with and move on with our day, because this is kind of bull in my opinion.
It is garbage. I think, what's the harm in still doing a trial? Just appease her. It's not going to change anyone's vote because we know it's lies. But still, might as well go through with the whole process.
Washington, however, though, is very dirty with money, and some Republicans might have change their vote if the right offers there.
I don't think so, because he would be the one mainly running. He's the only one I know of running for Republican president 2020.
Well, yeah, they don't. When you have a sitting president, the party generally doesn't have someone competing.
Right, but I mean, they probably do have a plan, I guess, in case he gets impeached.
If he gets impeached, Mike Pence is going to take over, and Trump could still run again because he hasn't done his second term. But like we said, we spoke about this 2 episodes ago, I believe. Nothing is realistically going to happen. He's going to. I doubt he's going to be impeached. But listen, Nancy Pelosi wants to hold the articles of impeachment away from the Senate. It's basically he's sitting in limbo, which is absolutely stupid, because they're wasting our time. It's like children playing, you know what I mean? Like, they don't want to share, whatever. It's annoying. Yeah, I know. They're wasting our time, and we don't. I don't know.
Great
annoying
use of government resources right there.
Yeah, great use of government resources. My ass.
We elect these buffoons to go and be like, oh, real decisions that have to be... No. Let's not focus on those. Let's try to impeach a guy because we don't like him. So let's make up some claims. Let's get some people to say some stuff and say that it actually happened. And let's get this dude impeached because he's a loser. You're do you not care about the country that you're running for? I mean...
The Democrats...
Shouldn't that be why we vote people in?
Yeah, that's what a democracy is, and they lost fair and square. And the biggest argument that I've heard on Twitter, especially, is, oh, well, Hillary won the popular vote. Well, obviously, we live in a democracy, and our democracy has the Electoral College. Each state has a specific number of votes to give to a president. So when you hear them on the news talking about how it's important to win Florida, it's important to win California, it's important to win these states. Well, obviously the reason they're there is because they want the Electoral College votes, and it's never been an issue until the Democrats lost in 2016, and they're salty because I don't know why they're salty. Like, we weren't really all that salty with Obama. You know,
I mean,
like,
we were fairly salty with Obama.
We didn't we didn't go about it the way they are. Like,
we did have the whole, he's not a legal citizen, you know, he's from...
Well, that was a few people.
And Arabia or something, whatever he said.
His brother is not an American citizen. So
look, here's how I see it. Both parties play dirty. Both parties are not really having the best interests of the country in mind. Why do we even have political parties if this is what they turn into? I think we should
That's what I've been saying for years.
I think we should just vote
run
on people based on their opinions that they present to the public and be like, I think this person is going to do the best things for our country, and they mean the best for our country, not because they represent some party and we align with that party, not because, you know, they're the most popular person running in this group of idiots. I think we should vote on people just solely based on how they show themselves and how we think they're going to do for our country.
Exactly. Like, I've seen a lot of videos of people, a lot of surveys. So people will go and take surveys of people, like in the streets, that vote and stuff. And they'll be like, they'll talk about someone's healthcare plan or someone's tax plan or whatever. And one of them is Trump's, obviously, but they say it's like Bernie Sanders. And almost always, the person being surveyed likes the Democrat candidate more than Trump's. And then they reveal that the Democrats' plan is actually Trump's, and they don't know what to say. If we didn't have political parties, then I guarantee you Trump would be a popular president.
Well, I
more
don't
than
know
he
about
is
popular
now.
because he's pretty hot-headed.
He is hot-headed, but that's what Americans want. But a majority of Americans aren't, like, they don't understand politics because they're just being, like, fed this fake narrative from these news media sources. And they, you know, a lot of them don't care to do research into it or make an assumption, especially young people. Like, you talk to a ton of college students, and a majority of them are going to be like, dude, I don't really care. I'm not even going to vote. And that's stupid to me, but that's a totally different argument. That's a totally different thing to talk about. But yeah, impeachment, I don't know. They're wasting our time. One of the Democrats was on an interview, and she said, I don't remember who it was. It might have been Nancy Pelosi, but I doubt it. Something about how they've been trying to impeach him since the day he got elected, because they said that the day of inauguration, they said they're going to impeach him. And one of the things I saw was the reason they're trying to impeach him this time is for something that happened this year. It didn't happen back then. That's because they were trying to get him on Russian collusion. And
right.
They're
and then
hypocrites.
That went nowhere because it was a lie.
Exactly. And now they're trying to get him on something that, like, shouldn't even be counted, regardless if you like Trump or not.
What's worse about it is
foreign leader.
Is a lot of people still believe that the Russian collusion thing was a real thing. It wasn't.
Exactly.
It was proven to not be. Like, they did a whole serious investigation on the guy, and they came up with nothing because he didn't have Russian collusion. He didn't.
We're not saying he didn't have
call
ties,
for the assistance,
but
from Russia.
No, he didn't call for anything. From the evidence that we have, like, I'm not, like, neither of us are saying this because we like Trump or we don't like Trump. We're saying this because of the evidence on the table, obviously, right, Isaac? I mean,
I like Trump, but yeah,
I do. But if he actually did something wrong, like, I think everyone would want to see someone that actually broke the law be punished, because that's how the America works. Correct, Isaac?
Correct.
But
correct.
There's no evidence.
Wrong.
Brody, I know you don't like to get into politics on the show, but what is your opinion on the impeachment? Like, people reacting to it a certain way?
I don't know.
You don't
Whatever,
know?
man. I'm a college student. Whatever, man, right? Whatever.
Yeah, but
you're the problem, Brody. You're the problem.
Yeah.
And right here in front of us, we have the prime example of a college student who does not care.
Yeah,
you disappoint
obviously.
the world, Brody. How does that make you feel?
Whatever, man.
But I'm going to predict it here right now. We're going to look back at this next November. Trump is going to win in 2020, and it's going to be because of this impeachment shindig.
Well, I feel like most people, I feel like at least a good amount of people are starting to realize that this has all been fake right along.
It's going to be a landslide. I'm predicting it now. A month ago, I had a hard time predicting it because of the lack of knowledge. Because of this impeachment thing, they're going to draw this. I mean, if Nancy Pelosi decides to draw this out until next election, like the articles of impeachment, which would be stupid on their behalf because they're trying to get the guy out. But if they do that, voters are going to realize that they're just wasting our time, and they're going to vote for Trump, who, no matter what, has been working his ass off to make America great again and fulfill every promise.
Yeah, no, I actually feel like he's had the nation's best interests in mind through his presidency.
He's accomplished everything that he set his mind out to. The Dow is up 10,000 points from the day he got elected. It's 10,000 points. It's high, the highest it's ever been. Highest unemployment since 1969.
Highest unemployment.
I was debating a Democrat. I got to tell you this story.
Do you mean
everyone listening?
Do you mean lowest unemployment? Because highest unemployment would be like no one has jobs.
Yeah,
It'd
lowest
be like the Great
unemployment.
Depression.
My bad. Yeah, my bad. But I was debating a Democrat on Facebook. I know Facebook. I got to tell everyone this story though because I think they'll find it funny. So, I was debating a woman on Facebook about this, and I had said about the jobs. I made that point. Lowest unemployment since 1969. And she said, well, the reason that is because the reason there aren't that many jobs is because the average American's working 2 or 3 jobs a person. And I said, okay, I would love to see this statistic. She sends me an article, and the article says 13 million Americans are working more than one job. So then I did some quick maths, and I determined that the population of the United States is 327 million or something. And what percentage is 13 million of that 300 and something million? Well, it's 2.8%.
Not very high.
It's 2.8%. So she claimed that a majority of Americans are working more than one job when it's less than 10%, less than 5%, mind you.
I mean, 2%. A lot of this might have to do with just flashy titles and misleading flashy titles. But that's
stupid.
Then your mind kind of runs with it.
But she actually thought it was a real statement. And she even did at the end of the argument because she just said that I'm a stupid Republican or whatever. And it's like, come on. If you're going to debate someone, please at least put some facts on the table. Like, that's so dumb. That's honestly the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And,
well, I mean,
whatever.
I feel like it's fine to argue opinion-based. And if you think you heard something, it's fine to say that. But if you're proven that statement is statistically or evidently false, then you should, suck it up and take it and be like, oh, well, I guess I was wrong. And if your opinion's still the same, then your opinion's still the same. But at least admit to a faulty argument.
But honestly, if you're going to talk about people having to work more than one job, then obviously you could point that towards not many people are going to get higher education, or not many people are going to get salary jobs. Like minimum wage, unless you're living alone and you're living like very very low income, you're not ever like minimum wage. You're never ever going to be living large because it's just not, there's not enough money. I mean, you're just not.
I mean, really, in order to have highs, you have to have lows. That's just kind of the way economics work. And you need to have highs to be able to run things, to be able to run corporations, to be able to make goods. So it's a balance.
The answer is we need to be able to have more businesses come back to America, more manufacturing businesses. If we want our country to prosper and have more American workers be making more money, we need to have these companies come back to America. But then someone will say, well, then the price of goods are going to go up. Well, when the price of goods do go up, the employees are going to be able to, the companies are going to be able to afford to pay the employees more, right? And then these employees are going to be able to afford the stuff. And it kind of baffles me. Obviously, I understand not everyone is educated in economics.
All right there, Henry Ford. Hold on. That's not always a good thing to have the prices of things go up.
Well,
like it's like raising minimum wage. You sounded a lot like arguments for raising minimum wage. But
no, okay. Look at it like this. So in history, you brought up Henry Ford. Okay, so that's a good example because when Henry Ford was running the Ford Corporation, right? We're talking about Henry Ford the First. A lot of his employees couldn't afford the items that he was manufacturing. So what did he do? He started paying his employees more, and they started buying Ford vehicles, right? And the company made the money back. Well, that's kind of what the government has to look at it like, because the more money that people can afford to spend, the more tax revenue, and then, the businesses don't have to be taxed as much, and then more people, it's just, that's how economics works. You're never going to have everyone on top. You've got to have poverty. Then you've got to have we need to widen the middle class. That's the big thing. We need more people
here's the thing
jobs.
About changing the economics in that sense. How at least how I would envision it to happen is it'd be a lot like raising minimum wage. Making everything inflate in prices because the big companies are having to spend more to make the goods that they make. So the prices of things are going to go up, and that will just rise with minimum wage. So the actual living conditions of the people with minimum wage isn't really going to change that much, but it's going to hurt the middle class because they're not going to get raises with the minimum wage increasing, not necessarily. So it's like getting a pay dock. It's like losing some of your paycheck. So you're hurting the middle class, and then that money goes to the upper class. So you're just shifting it in a way that would damage the economy. At least how I would see it to happen. I don't have any evidence on that.
There's a lot of... I understand what you're saying, because I also see that problem too. But there's a lot of factors that goes into it. You don't have a lot of people working salary because a lot of people don't actually go to college because college is so expensive. So there's a lot of factors that goes into it, right? If college was cheaper and more people were going, to be engineers or doctors or whatnot, and they didn't have to worry about having huge student loan bills, then you'd have more people making salary money, like $100,000 plus a year, which is middle class, which is pretty good. And that's what this country needs in order to, widen the middle class, basically. There's a lot of factors, and obviously I'm not the most knowledgeable with economics. I just know that from a business perspective, when people talk about raising the middle class, there's flaws with that. Because when you're a business owner, and let's say you have a staff of 20 people, and you're paying them $10 an hour. Well, then they're trying to make the minimum wage $15 an hour. Well, obviously, you can't afford to take a big cut in your revenue, your profit margins, because you got to pay more in your payroll. So then you're going to start limiting people's hours or laying people off, and people are going to get pissy because then those are the people that have to go out and work more than one job, because the business owner can't afford to operate and then pay 20 employees $15 an hour, plus make sure they have health benefits, and on top of that, make sure they're working 35 to 40 hours a week. You just can't do that. Like, my parents used to own a grocery store, and that was the hardest thing because minimum wage was rising, and we were trying to lower the prices of our goods, because you also got to compete with all the other stores, especially the big box stores like Hannaford and Walmart, who are putting the small mom and pop stores out of business because they can afford to take a loss until those businesses are out of business. And that's called a monopoly, boys and girls. And at the end of the day, we live in a paradox of a society, because no matter what the hell you do, there's always going to be someone that's either not winning, not happy, or that's just how it works. You're never going to please everyone. And that's what's annoying.
Paradox,
but, you know, like Isaac said, economics, you know, you got to have the lows and you got to have the highs. And at the end of the day,
like Isaac said, you know, economics and stuff, right?
I'm trying to make sure this goes full circle, okay? Because I'm talking about business, because that's at the end of the day what everything comes down to is business. And, you know, people can't afford, especially small business owners. And that's the thing, because without small business owners, your community isn't going to have a whole lot of, you know, money coming in tax-wise. Like, for instance, the town next to us, Madison, the town next to where I live, Madison, had a big paper mill. And this big company bought them out, this big company overseas. Well, what they did was they started, they shut the mill down, ultimately. And the town of Madison took a huge loss in taxes. And that's never good, because then you got to cut the budgets of your schools and everything else. So, I don't know. You know, it's complicated, obviously.